we live on Temptation Island, meaning that there's food and opportunities and birthdays and parties and celebrations and restaurants, and it's just overwhelming. Welcome. You've landed on Zero Limits Living. Every week, I bring you inspiration and information to transform your life. I'm Dr. Joe Vitale. This show has become so popular so quickly, you can now see it or hear it on 1,000 platforms across the planet. That includes Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, YouTube, and probably anything you can name, and probably anything you're on right now. I'm putting all the shows in one place to make it easy for you to go and binge. Go to ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com. ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com. You can even sign up there to be notified whenever there is a new episode, which is generally every Friday. Also, people ask me about Miracles Coaching. Miracles Coaching at miraclescoaching.com is a program I created 20-some years ago. It's a system that works. It's trademarked. This process has helped hundreds of people, if not thousands or hundreds of thousands. I've lost track. Check it out for yourself. Go to miraclescoaching.com. My latest online program is called Mental Time Travel System. mentaltimetravelsystem.com. It's a way to go to the past to clean up your perceptions from what took place, empower yourself in the moment, and then in this new empowered moment, create a future that is more compelling and inspiring and guaranteed to come to you. Check that out at mentaltimetravelsystem.com. And then finally, I'm an author, of course, and I always have new books. My latest is Unexpected Kindness. You can go to Unexpected Kindness book or just go to Amazon and you can find it there. Now, I am beside myself because who I get to interview here is a longtime friend, ally, coach, mentor, and so many more things that I probably can't list them all. Here's his bio. He's known as the Austin, Texas fittest man over 50. Scott York is a seasoned entrepreneur, digital marketer, and fitness professional with a passion for helping others achieve their goals. With over 38 years of experience in the industry, Scott York has made a significant impact in the lives of his clients as a dedicated strength coach. His commitment to his family is a driving force behind his desire to inspire and empower individuals to lead healthier and more fulfilling lives. His website is scottyorkfitness.com, and I have him here. Scott, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Joe?
Well, I'm disappointed.
Oh, no. We're already starting off on the wrong foot.
I'm disappointed because that is the bio that was given to me. And while that is true, it doesn't cover everything. I wrote down a few things that should have been in your bio. For example, you're an author.
That's right.
Yes. Well, let's just not mention that. I mean, you're an author. This is
you have 100 books. I have 5. I'm waiting to catch up. And then I, can share a little bit more.
And the average person thinks, oh, I want to write a book one day. You've written 5, for God's sakes. So first of all, that's one of the things. 5 books, that's a big, big deal. The other is you are a fitness contest winner, and I was there. This is the shirt. I was wearing this shirt. This is the York Barbell Club T-shirt, for those who can see it, because I was the water boy for Scott York when he went through his Austin Fittest contest and won.
And that was and that was in 2015. And, there's so many lessons that you and I have shared, more me learning than anything, but we've known each other for almost 20 years. And I remember, we can go back to the start, but I have to interject here because I remember telling you when I entered Austin's Fittest, I emailed you and I said, and I'm going to win.
That's right.
Okay. And that was before I knew anything about the contest, who was competing. I just believed, the magic of believing, right? Yes, and guess what? I did. But yes, you were my good luck charm. And without you,
Uh,
I don't know if it would have been the same. So thank you.
Thank you for pointing that out. I also remember that every email you sent from that moment on, at the bottom of the email said you were the winner of the Austin Fittest Over 50 contest. You were already stepping into ownership of the trophy before you had actually entered the contest and participated. I mean,
And
this for me, this is another lesson. You chose to believe you were going to win, and you acted as if you had already won with your actions on a day-to-day basis. Well, I'm not done with what was left out of your bio. I made a couple notes here, Scott. Another one is you left out that you have trained me. I'm back almost 20 years ago at this point with the Body for Life contest that Bill Phillips had brought out to the world, and I'm so grateful for. You helped train me for that, and I got an honorable mention. I still have the little plaque that had my name in tiny little print, but it was on that plaque saying that, I got an honorable mention. And then many years later, when I went into the transformation contest and you were in my corner for that, I won three medals. Medals were given to me for fitness accomplishment, and they were given to me by Bill Phillips. This is huge, and you
yeah.
were in my corner for that. I'm not done with what should have been in your bio. You put your kids in business online before they could write, before these kids knew what money was or the value of it. You had them in business, and this business has exploded. These are all things I want to expand on in our conversation, but I'm also pointing out they should have been in your bio. You also created a membership program for the Bodybuilders Reality, which I so love the story of how you had thought of this. You came up with this idea. We want to embellish on that. And what else did I put down here? Oh, and you've done lots more. That should have been in your bio.
Oh, doggone it. Well, thank you for mentioning all of that. And these tools are available. The daring to do something
Yeah.
bigger than you think. These tools, I'm nobody special. Anybody can do this stuff. These tools are available to you right now, today, to go out and change your life if that's what you want to do.
How did you get involved in all this? What was the beginning for the fitness journey? You can tell people about tools, and you've got 38 years experience now, but what was it like in the beginning? What was the ignition switch for you?
Um, well, going way back into my family, growing up in Austin, I went through bullying, and I
Mm.
think that's what kind of turned on the need to turn myself into a superhero. So, watching Lou Ferrigno in the Hulk, Superman, all of those things I think were initial triggers that I used to get into the weight room to work out. So
Mhm.
early in my teens, I started working out because I was always small, and I loved working out. So that's where it started, was because of bullying and,
Mm.
just needing to build up my body so that I could hopefully protect myself if I needed to.
I totally understand that. My question would be, at that point in time, why did you pick weightlifting as opposed to karate or the shooting range and buying a gun?
Well,
Why did you, yeah, why did you pick
that's a
one?
great question because I mean, I watched Kung Fu with
Yeah.
David Carradine and,
Mhm.
Matt Dillon and Gunsmoke. So it could have
Mhm.
been those things. My parents probably didn't want me carrying a gun when I was a teenager, but
Yeah.
it probably was because there was a YMCA, and I knew
Mhm.
people that went to the YMCA and they used the weights in the YMCA.
Mhm.
And in high school, they had a weight room and I played football. So that's probably because I had more exposure to weight training.
You mentioned Lou Ferrigno there, and I can't help but just jump ahead decades
Sure.
to the reality that you and I got to spend a lot of
Yeah.
time, you even more time, because you were in the car with him. But we
Hmm.
had dinner with him, we had breakfast with him, we got to talk to him quite a bit. What was that like for you? I mean, from this perspective of saying, as a kid being bullied, you are inspired by Lou Ferrigno, and then decades later, as an adult, you're in the car with Lou Ferrigno and having breakfast and dinner with him and me. What was
I,
that like?
well, I mentioned getting into weight training because of bullying. And then I think there was a really long period of my time where I was kind of in a trance. I was in a daze. I was in the corporate world for 10 years. I was working out, but I thought that my life was probably going to be just that, working in the corporate world, having a family. I'm married and have kids, and that would have been fine. But then I discovered you. And I've mentioned other people, Ryan Lee, I've mentioned him
Mhm.
before, who is a fitness mentor. And you guys turned me on to, going beyond the norm. So I started reading and listening to audio programs and applying what I was listening to and learning and taking action. And, that's how I met you. We can expand on that if we want. That's how I met Lee Priest and started that DVD of the month.
Mhm.
Side note on Lee Priest, and this is supposed to be top secret, but I don't think Lee will ever hear this. Uh, in August of 2022, so almost a year ago, I had an email from the official government site in Australia. At first, I thought it was a spam email, but the lady emailing me wants to nominate Lee for an award within the Order of Australia because Lee is from Australia.
Mhm. Mhm.
And this award is usually astronauts, physicists, writers, things like that. And, you know,
Wow.
to be able to work with Lee on Bodybuilders Reality has just been incredible. So there was a big gap where I was in the corporate world. All
Mhm.
of a sudden, I started to, read your books and learn from Ryan Lee, and I applied what I learned, and I started Bodybuilders Reality, which I think was the very first product or project outside of me being in the corporate world.
So,
Once I learned, yeah,
yeah, let's expand on that a second because I'm not sure everybody's going to know who Lee Priest is,
okay,
and I've always loved the story of how you came up with Bodybuilders Reality, because as I remember, and I want you to embellish this, explain it, and correct it if I'm wrong. You're watching television about reality shows, and something in your head clicks, and
mm-hmm,
now you're thinking like a entrepreneur, and you
mm-hmm.
adapt what you're seeing to the bodybuilding world. And Lee Priest was somebody, and you can fill all the rest in if I'm correct with that line of thinking.
That's absolutely right. We were watching Survivor, my wife and I.
Ah,
And normally, my wife, when I pass along an idea that I have, she just doesn't say anything. And that's how I know it's not a good idea. She just ignores me. In this case, I described, what Bodybuilders Reality would become. It was a DVD where people would get a DVD in the mail of the world's most popular pro bodybuilder, Lee Priest. Arnold Schwarzenegger had Lee Priest and Arnold's Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding.
ah.
Lee is one of the most famous, and I realize it's a very small niche, but it's my niche. And
Mhm.
so I probably picked the best guy I could have to do this. And so we said, okay, but how are we going to get Lee Priest? Well, it just turns out that he was living in Austin, where I live, at that same time. What are the
But you
odds of
didn't you
that?
didn't know you didn't know
I
that,
didn't
did
know
you?
that at the
Ah,
time.
that's wild. Hmm.
That's wild. So I heard that he was living in Austin, and a friend of mine was running a gym where Lee trained. And so I knew Bruce, and I reached out to Bruce, the owner of the gym, and I said, hey, ask Lee if he's interested in doing a DVD of the month, Bodybuilders Reality. He said, yeah. And everything, went from there.
That is an amazing story. What was that like for you? Because you're in the corporate world, you're
Yeah.
getting inspired reading books by me, listening to Ryan Lee, was it?
Yeah.
And but now you're going to make a jump. Now you're going to make this
Yeah.
departure. How were
Hmm.
you scared? Were you excited? Did
Yeah.
you? Yeah.
Well, I made the jump while I was at work, and this may not
Mhm.
sound great, and I don't recommend people do this, but I worked a shift which was a Saturday and a Sunday for a period of time. I was working 3 days a week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then I was off the rest of the week. This was early on in our family where we had really young kids. So my wife worked, and then I worked. We were like two ships in the night. I
Mhm.
didn't want to maintain that, so I was looking for a way out. So I built a website while I was at work called fullforcefitness.net. And that was my fitness boot camp that you are well aware of.
Hmm.
And I started signing people up for the fitness boot camp. Once again, it's because of books that I was reading and Ryan Lee audios, and people signed up. So the boot camp allowed me to jump from the corporate world and into running boot camps. I had 3 locations around Austin at that time, and I did that for about 8 years. And then Bodybuilders Reality and some other things that I was doing grew, and I was able to leave the corporate world and just focus on my being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Wonderful. When I look back, just a wonderful, magical time. And life has never been the same since then. There's no regrets. I've
That's,
never wanted to return, to the corporate world.
that is so wonderful. And were you an entrepreneur or thought like an entrepreneur before you started reading those books or listening to Ryan?
Well, my dad was an entrepreneur. He was an attorney. He passed away in 2007, and he worked for a law firm. But at some point, when we moved from Austin, he jumped ship and started his own law practice and made a very successful living and expanding his own business. And so I was paying attention to him. I
Hmm.
would travel with him. I would work at his office when I was in high school, just doing,
Hmm.
mundane stuff. So I guess my dad would have been the first, entrepreneur that I encountered.
What I'm always curious about is how we get ideas. Most people that are watching the TV, whether it was, I think you said Survivor or anything else, are just kind of unconscious. They're just watching the show, and the neurons aren't firing for opportunities. Why was yours on the alert for something? Were you actively thinking, I want a business idea online, I want to be an entrepreneur with a digital product? Do you have any feedback? Do you remember anything that was going on that might have made it possible for you to have that aha? And then,
Possibly.
yeah,
Yeah. And in 1985, when I was 21 years old, I was going to Baylor and I read a book. A good friend of mine, a guitar player, gave me a book called Creative Visualization. And I've told you this story before, and I read
shock me,
that
go in.
book.
Yeah.
Yes, I read
Mhm.
that book and I wrote down, as she instructed in the book, that I wanted to be Mr. Texas. And I put, I don't remember if I put the year, but I knew that that affirmation, and this was my first, introduction to creative visualization and thinking in those terms and writing things down and putting it in my wallet. And so that was it, the book, Creative Visualization.
Yeah. And that was a turning point for a lot of people. I don't know that I ever told you, but the very first workshop I ever put on was to promote her in Houston, Texas. And it was a struggle because I was unknown, unpublished, had no funds, but I had read the book and I reached out to her. That was before the internet. I wrote to her and she wrote back and I agreed to put on an event, not knowing anything. And, when I say event, it's like 5 people showed up. It wasn't a big deal, but it was a turning point for me because I marketed it. I got to meet a famous author. I love the creative visualization book as well. So that's kind of my cool little story to add to that. The thing is, you didn't come up with just one idea. The other thing that I'm so fascinated with, because not only are you the fitness guy, you're the author guy, you're this winner for the over 50, you got the digital product with Lee Priest, the Bodybuilders Reality, but you helped your kids.
Right.
Tell me that story because I think this is so fascinating. What are you leaving? It looks like you're
I'm just
leaving.
leaning over here. So I'm going to fast forward. This is a YouTube plaque
Ah,
for our kids' YouTube channel.
wow.
And the YouTube channel is called Garbage Trucks Rule, and it has about 135,000 subscribers when they were younger. So they're very proud of this. The
Yeah.
boys, I have 4 boys. This was a project that just started during Christmas in I think it was 2010, so 13 years ago when they were much younger. I just started
About
film.
how old were they? Just for
Well, the oldest one would have been 5,
wow.
and the next one would have been 2, and then the other 2 weren't even hadn't even come along yet. So the 2 that were, in our world, the 2 that were alive, the 5 and the 2-year-old, were playing with trucks just outside in the dirt.
Hmm.
And I was watching them, just enjoying the moment. So I started filming filming them. I think I had a new camera, a Kodak ZI-8, which is ancient now, but at the time. So I was just experimenting with the camera. And I remember it only had like 15 seconds, of hard drive capability. So I had to make it really good. And
Wow.
so I uploaded that. I said, let me just do a YouTube channel. It's free, to start a YouTube channel. Anybody can do it. Let me just start uploading videos of the boys playing with trucks. And when they're older, we'll look back and laugh and say, there you are. But I started seeing after 3, 4, 5, 6 months of doing this, and I was probably making 1 or 2 videos a week at that time, just not putting too much time into it, just doing it, knocking it out. And I noticed that people were watching the videos. They were getting thousands of views, not at first, but after, somewhere 3 to 6 months is when it really started picking up. So my entrepreneurial brain, I'd already been doing entrepreneurial projects. I could connect the dots and say, hey, I can monetize this if I get 1,000 subs or whatever you need to get. And then fast forward, we're making 2,000, 3,000 grand a month. Fast forward, this is
Mhm.
probably 5, 6 years later, but I
Mhm.
remember giving my oldest son a $1,200 payment for 1 month, and he was probably 13 or 14 years old. He made $1,200 because he made a lottery YouTube video that just really took off, and he went out and bought his own computer.
Wow. Wow. Did the kids understand what you were doing? I mean, I understand they were 5 and 2, but was there a clue? I remember I had a nephew and we gave him a car, and I think he was 3 or 4 years old, and we put money in it. And he opened the car and he looked at the money. The money didn't make any sense to him. He was like, "Where's the toy? Where's the candy?" The
Hmm.
money was like worthless because he hadn't had any understanding of value. Did your kids understand or get a clue? Or I don't even know how
Well,
to
they
ask the
they did
question.
not really understand, other than me filming them or taking pictures, which they were used to, because when you have kids, you do that.
Right.
Um, Once they started to get money, and I think they started to get like $100 each at some
Uh-huh.
point, because we wanted to share. My wife and I wanted to say, okay, what are we going to do with this money? Does it go into a college fund? Whatever. We said, let's just give it to them. It's not that much. And that was when it was like $100 each. They
Mhm.
would go and buy Nerf guns. And that was so much fun to take them into the store, and they would just go buy stuff, and it was a spending spree. Uh, so yes, they did realize later when they
Yeah.
were, getting that money every
Mhm.
month and they were able to
Mhm.
spend it. They were
Mhm.
on board. They said, "Let's make more videos. Let's." So it
I
was just a lot of fun.
I remember one story where you said you went with the kids to open the bank account for them.
Yes,
R
and so there was a learning lesson, teaching them, entrepreneurship, and yes, learning how to have your own banking account. I think if you were to ask them, they would smile and they would look back because, we spoke as a family at one of your events where Dee
Mhm.
Wallace and Bill
Yes.
Phillips, and we got to
Yes.
sell Garbage Trucks Rules shirts. That's the
Shirts,
name of the YouTube channel. And we
right?
even wrote a book called The Little Lost Garbage Truck. It's not there anymore, but it was just a really fun event. I think when they look back, 10, 20, 30 years, they're always going to look back on that time and just smile.
This is so amazing. There's a couple of reasons why it's amazing. One is you, as an entrepreneur, saw the opportunity. I don't know that all of us see the opportunity, and I'm kind of fishing to find out how do we put that lens on that our perception is alert for the opportunity enough that we go, oh, that could be something, and let's jump on it. And the other thing I wanted to mention, and you can respond to any of this here in a second, is the whole idea that I never in a million years would have thought people would go watch garbage trucks backing up on YouTube videos. I've seen the channel. I mean, I got a t-shirt too, and I know your kids. I mean, I know all of this, but it blows my mind. It's like, what else is going on in the world that I have no clue about when it's as simple as a garbage truck driving, backing up, loading, dumping?
I know, and you've even supplied me with a video or two in your travels. I think Lisa may have taken a video or something, but I
Right.
don't know. I mean, but once that happens, Joe, and once you see the potential as you look around,
Mhm.
anything's possible, right? You wrote the book on it. Anything's possible. So
Right.
you know,
right?
you have to turn that part of your brain on. And once again, your books and I've had a couple of other fitness mentors. So that's the first step, is having somebody just kind of, turn on the ignition to your brain, you
Yeah.
know?
And so when it comes to books, and this might put you on the spot a little bit unless the books are on the shelf, are there a couple that come to mind that you would recommend to people? Because what I'm trying to do here is to help the
Yeah.
people listening
Yeah.
that are viewing us and give them a head start, give them a jump start, and say, read this book, like Creative Visualization. It's still in print. It's still worth reading. It's a little book. It doesn't take long to soak that up. What else comes to mind for
Well,
you?
Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
Attractor Factor by you. My wife and
Thank
I
you.
say that was the book that really, lit our fire.
Oh,
You never stop learning. So just because I read Creative Visualization, just because I read, Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, just like in the fitness industry, I'm always looking to learn. So it never
hmm
stops. You never
hmm
say, well, I read that book and nothing's happening, so it just doesn't work. Well, no, you keep learning and you keep being a student of life. And, that's where the good stuff is. Other books would be, I love, I love the book, The Man That Nobody Knows. Help me out with
Bruce
the
Barton.
Bruce Barton. There's something about that book, and you gave me that book, and I
Yeah.
I love that book.
Wow. The man.
Wallace Waddles,
Yes. The Science of Getting Rich.
love that book. There's just so many. I mean,
Yeah.
the Hopo, you and Dr. Len.
The Zero
And,
Limits book, Ho'oponopono. Yes.
and a side note on that, a couple of weeks ago, we went to Lake Tahoe as a family to visit my wife's family. And we're catching up with friends, and I'm thinking, all right, we're going to have a chance to get caught up and, find out what's going on. All of a sudden, and there's 16 of us, somebody asks me, Dr. Joe Vitale, don't you? Where did this come from? I was like, yeah, how do you know that? I have his book, uh, The Ancient Secret of Hawaiian Healing.
Ah.
Her name is Julia. Julia, if you're watching, there he is right there.
Hi, Julia.
Yeah, and amazing. Anyway, I lost my train of thought. What was the
That's okay.
question?
You were giving me books and things like that, and I know that the books are part of it. Obviously, you see what's behind me. I'm a book guy, book freak,
Yeah, there's so
and
many.
there's so many. But the other thing that you said in the beginning, and you didn't say it this time, but I want to hit on it and have you expand on it, is yes, there's no finish line in learning. So you have to keep being a student. You have to keep growing. Well, in your case, you mentioned fitness. You're still looking in there. But the other part of it is you have to take action,
Right.
because a lot of people will say, and you had mentioned this, they read the book, nothing happened. Well, first of all, did you read the book and do something to make anything happen? What is your response to that? How do you tell people you got to take action and you got to take feedback from the action you took and then take more action as a result of that feedback?
Believing Before Seeing, a new book by Candace Barr, teaching you how to believe into existence. Available now for pre-order.
Yeah, this is where my corporate world experience comes into play, because I was trained in the corporate world by some old school, hard-nosed mafia type guys. One
What a
guy was a
description.
one guy was a Marine drill instructor from New York, and he
Oh,
was
geez.
Italian. So Italian, like you, New York,
Yep.
and Marine drill instructor. He, in the corporate world, no excuses. I mean, obviously you want to be compassionate with people, but I don't, this may not sound great, but I expect, if I'm in the fitness, if I have a client and I train a bunch of high school athletes and college athletes in my gym and they sign up for my program, I expect them to do it.
Yeah.
So it's the same if somebody says, well, I read the book that you recommended, Scott, and nothing happened. I kind of go into that hard-nosed mentality that I learned in the
Mhm.
corporate world, and I hold them accountable. I don't take them by the hand and say, well, let's read it together. I heard, is it Jocko Wilco,
Yeah. Well,
social media influencer? Somebody
yeah.
asked him, how do I get started? I know you work out early in the morning and all that. His response was, set your alarm for 5 a.m., get up.
Right.
That's it. That's it.
Can we look at that for a second? Because
Yeah.
I am an early riser, and my father was a drill sergeant in the Marines and a boxer and all that kind of stuff. So I know about that focus, but I also know that there's an intensity that Jocko has and David Goggins has, and
Yeah.
there's a whole movement of guys that are just like over the top in terms of we're going to crush our lives. We're getting up at 5 o'clock. In fact, some say that's a wimp's time. Get up at 4 o'clock. And so they just keep elevating it and pushing the boundary. But Scott, the average person that's maybe watching this, they don't relate to that. When they hear that kind of an extreme focus, it is like complete detachment.
Yeah.
They have to start with chair yoga and Pilates and swimming in a pool. And I don't know, where's the balance here? How does somebody decide? It's like jumping in the deep end, and Jocko would throw somebody off a cliff and just say, learn how to fly.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute, isn't there a middle ground? Isn't there a training wheels?
There is.
Stage?
Yeah, there is. And I think the answer to that for me is, well, first of all, take a little bit of the different thought processes or philosophies and apply them. So take a little bit from Jocko, take a little bit from David Goggins, take a little bit from, whoever, Jack LaLanne, whoever it might be, and then do it that way. If that over the top part doesn't appeal to you, you have to know yourself, right? You have to know yourself. Surround yourself with people that have the same goal. Get into the mentorship groups, work out with like-minded people. That's what I always did in the gym. I would go and find the biggest guy in the gym. And this is a true story. I did this with a guy named Mike Scarcella, who turned out to be Mr. America. Stretch yourself. I went up to Mike. He didn't know me from Adam. Put yourself in my shoes. I was bullied. I wasn't quite, where I needed to be yet with my confidence and experience, but I knew I loved bodybuilding. So I went up to Mike, the biggest guy in the gym. I sat down next to him and I said, I want to be your training partner. It took a lot of guts for me to do that. I still some days can't believe that I did that. Well, he laughed. And I said, why are you laughing? And I said that, good naturedly, because I didn't want him to crush me. Right. And he said, no offense, I'm laughing because I get that all the time. People, then they don't show up. And I said, well, I'll show up. And he and I started training together for about the next year and a half.
Wow.
And he told me I was the best training partner he ever had. He went on to win Mr. America, Mr. USA. So get around people who share, the same vision, the same goals, the same energy. If Jocko likes to listen to hard rock, but you like country, go find the guy or girl that likes to listen to country and march to the beat of their drum. So that's what I would say.
That's a beautiful answer. So I have to ask a couple of personal questions here.
Sure.
And hope that's okay with you. One is, what is your age?
59.
So you're 59. And how have you changed your fitness routine from when you were in your, if not teens, in your early 20s, when you're going to the bodybuilders or walking up to a bodybuilder of that size and saying, hey, I'm going to be your partner? What has changed for you? How have you adapted to your new age?
Boy, that's a good question. I think putting that piece of paper in my billfold, I don't have it anymore, but when I read Creative Visualization, the author said to write something down that was very important to you. And I put that, I want to win Mr. Texas, in my billfold. I think that's probably been the spark in my life, and it never has shut off. It just continues to push me forward. So to answer your question, if I had to answer in a logical way and in a healthy way, I would say I probably need a little more rest and recovery at 59. But if my high school athletes and college athletes were sitting here hearing me say that, they'd be rolling their eyes because they know they're trying to catch me. I'm trying to stay ahead of them. So I feel like a teenager or an early 20-something-year-old. So my age is just a number. It doesn't matter. Where does that come from? Also, I think just good diet, good sleep habits, and just having a positive mindset and filling your brain, with good stuff.
With all the research you've done and you've written books, and we both have idols, whether it's Steve Reeves or Lou Ferrigno, what have you found to be the common elements in fitness that work across the board? Are there some very basic principles that if you get up and do this for a few minutes or several times a day, and I'm just fishing because I'm giving you the opportunity to deliver something that virtually anybody watching or listening can do, begin today?
A couple of things stand out. First of all, I think of Jack LaLanne,
Mm-hmm.
the godfather of fitness. I think he
Yeah.
was known as. He passed away, but most people still know that name. If they don't, then their parents will. He had a very popular TV show. He would wake up in the morning and he wouldn't always feel like working out. And this is the godfather of fitness. But he would work out and he would look in the mirror after he worked out and he would say, "Damn it, Jack, you did it again." And he would pat himself on the back, for having knocked out something that maybe he didn't feel like doing, but he felt good that he did it. So he started his day off in a very positive way. That stands out.
Yeah, that's great.
The other thing that stands out, and I think I learned this from you, is writing things down the night before. You still do that?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
So write down, I'm going to walk, 1 block in the morning. I'm going to walk down the street and back, 100 yards and back. Writing that stuff down and then putting that little pad, on your desk. First thing you see when you sit down, that's pretty powerful. So those two things, I think Jack LaLanne and just that, getting it done and then feeling good that you got it done would be number one. And then just writing it down and just sticking to your plan.
I want to unpack that just a little bit more. And that's because I love the Jack LaLanne story. I had not heard that before. If I did, I forgot it. I also heard something similar from David Goggins. And this is one of those intense guys his books are selling like crazy. He has got all kind of followers. He's getting up and running every day, miles and miles. He doesn't miss any days. But I heard him say there have been days when he gets up and he stares at his shoes for 30 minutes because he doesn't want to go do it.
Yeah.
I love the human admittance of that reluctance.
Yep.
But my deeper question is, what makes them do it after all? Why did Jack LaLanne still work out? Why does David Goggins put on his shoes after 30 minutes of mentally wrestling?
Yeah.
There probably are days when you don't want to go do some of the things you do, but you still go do it. Why? Yeah. Why still go do it?
I have two answers for you. And the first answer has been with me for a long time. I do not like running. Okay. If somebody tells me to go run a mile, you were there, you saw me just collapse when I crossed the finish line at Austin's Fittest. Yeah. Running is really tough for me. I don't know why. It just is, mentally, physically. But somebody told me once that first mile is a liar. And if you think about it, meaning if you get past that first mile running, walking, that first 15 minutes of lifting, whatever it is, it gets easier. The second mile is easier than the first. The third mile, up to a point, is easier than the last one. And that's been true in my experience. My goal is not to be like David Goggins. I respect the guy. I'm not that hardcore type. I do like to borrow a little bit, here and there and apply it because sometimes I need to do that for myself. I need to be hardcore with myself. That would be number one, is that first mile is a liar. The second one is that I have a goal, and you've actually challenged me on this, and I'm happy to report that we are taking action. We is me and my wife. I had told you I want to compete in CrossFit. That's the next level. So we will be joining our CrossFit gym that I used to go to in September. And my wife will be doing it with me. Once again, being around people, that share that same thing. My wife was a D1 athlete, so she likes to work out and she will help me. instead of me
Mhm.
staring at my shoes for 30 minutes. I don't know. Is David Goggins married? I have no idea. But my
I
wife
don't
is not
know.
going to let me stare at my shoes for 30 minutes. She's going to say, I got things to do. Let's go. So that
I
would be the
love it.
second thing, is
I
just
love it.
having a goal. And my goal is to compete in CrossFit and see,
Hmm.
I want to be in the 60-year-old and up.
Hmm.
So, for you people out there listening, what excites you? What is your goal? Take action, be around people that inspire you. We know that there's the saying, you are the product of the 5 people that you hang around the
Hmm.
most. So I find all that to be very true.
Very beautiful advice and great answers. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have to give a nod to Steve Reeves, since both of us have been so influenced by the man. And I thought I would just ask you, what inspires you about Steve Reeves? And you might say who he was for those who may not remember. And then why does he inspire you?
Well, Steve Reeves was the first action hero, the first movie action hero. He played Hercules, and he lit the world on fire with his screen presence. He inspired Winston Churchill, John F. Kennedy
Yeah.
Jr.,
Hmm.
Sylvester Stallone, Arnold
Hmm.
Schwarzenegger, Bruce Lee. The list just goes on and on. You, me,
Hmm.
and tens of thousands of others. He was a bodybuilder during the silver era, the golden era at Muscle Beach in California. He was a very handsome person. He went into acting and he became Hercules. From there, he went on to make many more movies, and he was the #1 movie star in the world in around 1960. And he inspired so many people. One of his favorite sayings was "Stay fit for life," and
Hmm.
so that still resonates with me.
Hmm.
I have known of Steve Reeves probably since the mid 80s, when I started buying the muscle magazines like Flex, Muscle and Fitness, and that's where I first learned of him. Bodybuilding took a wrong turn in the 90s when all the big
Yeah.
bubble guts started to appear due to doing things wrong with dieting and all that stuff, illegal drugs, basically. So Steve Reeves has always been physical perfection. And he's always been a thinking man's bodybuilder, with his power walking, with his power biking, with his way
Hmm.
of lifting. His routines, there was a lot of thought behind everything he did. So he wasn't your typical muscle head. He had other things that he wanted to accomplish. He had a working horse ranch, and he raised cattle. He did all these different things,
Hmm.
but fitness was very, very important to him. So, that's always been very inspiring to me.
And to me as well. I think I loved him because of the natural approach to getting the what looked like the perfect body.
Hmm.
Everybody else after him, and this is a general statement, started to cheat in some way.
Hmm.
And he was more of the natural approach, natural eating, natural workouts, all of that, and using strategy over substance.
Right.
And as you know, I came out with the Steve Reeves cookbook with George
Hmm.
Helmer at one point. And so it ought to be worth a mention too. What about when it comes to diet? Bill Phillips says we live on temptation island, meaning that there's food and opportunities and birthdays and parties and celebrations and restaurants, and it's just overwhelming. And so he says we're on temptation island. How do we kind of worm our way through this and find out what is kind of a rule of thumb healthy eating to again get us off center here, or get us back to center so that we can be healthier?
Well, my wife and I were talking about this yesterday, and, with a background in bodybuilding, it's all about hardcore dieting. It's
Yeah.
not fun. People don't go into bodybuilding to diet. Usually they enjoy working out, and then, they get into bodybuilding and they compete. But at some point, you just can't maintain that lifestyle, because the dieting, especially if you have, a wife, a girlfriend, family, you're just going to be in a rotten mood because it's low carb, low calories. So our philosophy now is to just be more active, get 10,000 steps a day, If we want to eat something, we will. If I want to go to Dairy Queen and have a DQ Blizzard with my kids, come on, it's summertime. Those are some of our best memories, doing stuff
Right.
like that growing up. I'm not going to deny my kids those types of things. So I think it comes back to balance. For me, it's increasing my activity, going for a 45-minute bike ride, getting on my assault runner and walking, trying to get those 10,000 steps one way or another. I'm very lucky. I have a fully stocked gym in my garage. I have all kinds of equipment, but you don't need that. You just need to move. And I think a really good step is to try to get 10,000 steps, to burn off any cheat food calories that you may eat. So I say don't try to diet like a bodybuilder. Try to follow a healthy diet, make it very simple, 4 or 5 meals a day, 3 meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner, right? And then maybe a snack or 2. That's 3 plus 2, 3 meals, 2 snacks. That's 5 times a day. If you only want to eat 4 times a day, that's fine. A meal can be a handful of almonds. A meal can be an apple. So simplify, define what your way of eating is. And that I'm a big fan of food combining. Steve Reeves was too. When you read through his books and articles, you see, he followed Gaylord Hauser, and some of these other authors that wrote about food combining. I would love to ask Steve this question because, Steve's mom, Goldie, was very much into nutrition, and Steve ate healthy all the time. The guy was never sick, perfect teeth, everything about him, his complexion was perfect. But I know he liked to eat also. The Muscle Beach guys would go to the buffet every once in a while, and he went and he ate. But somehow he was able to redirect himself and stay on, a healthy eating plan, 90% of the time.
And I wanted you to take a moment to explain food combining.
Yeah.
I don't know that most people will know what that is. I always said it's misnamed. It should be called food separation.
Right.
But how do you explain it so somebody would understand?
Well, digestion requires energy. When you digest food, maybe the best example is, how do you feel after you eat Thanksgiving, a meal? Most people go their separate ways in the house and go fall asleep on the couch in the easy chair, whatever, because they get tired, because they just ate a big meal. So digestion requires energy. Steve Jobs wrote about this in his Steve Jobs book. And he talked about when he stopped eating so much food and paying attention more to what he ate, he felt like he had so much energy he could walk from San Francisco to Los Angeles or whatever the example was. Yeah. So there's a lot of people besides me that are fans of food combining. What it is proteins require acid to break down, and then carbs require alkaline digestive juices to break down. So if you eat a sandwich, the bread is the carb and the lunch meat, the ham, is the protein. You've got conflicting things going on here. And, I was a little skeptical at first, but I love experimenting with nutrition. So I tried this. I read some books by Gaylord Hauser and some of the other authors. And I'll be doggone if I didn't automatically, instantly have more energy, meaning I would have, a food separation legal meal. So I would have chicken, I would have some vegetables, and this is where you start, I would have a salad. And Steve did some of this too. When you look at his diet, he ate somewhat like this. But, this is where you lose people, because people like to have their spaghetti and meatballs. They want to have their sandwiches. They want to have their steak and potatoes. Well, if you try it and then you'll find that you feel better, you have better digestion, you're not bloated, you lose some weight, you have more energy, so I still follow that, but I do a slightly different thing where I do food combining in the morning, and then the afternoon I ease back into chicken and rice or, some whatever we have for dinner, like pork chops and a baked potato. So, but just shifting in the morning and paying attention to that seems to help.
That's wonderful. So we're going to run out of time, which is very disappointing to me because you and I can talk for a very long time, and there's lots of other areas we can go to. So I have two final questions for you. One is, knowing that I was going to interview you, you were going to be on Zero Limits Living. Were you thinking, I really hope Joe asks me this question, or I really hope I get an opportunity to talk about this topic? Was there something that you've been itching to get to? Because here's your moment.
Well, I know you're always out to get me, so I figured there'd be one of those little zingers in there, and I'm just kidding when I say that, of course. But I also knew this conversation could go any number of ways. You and I met Louise Hay.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother episode.
Yes.
We talked about Lou Ferrigno.
Yes.
We've had so many adventures and experiences together. I felt like it was going to be fitness oriented, and I knew it was going to be, self-help related. So I was excited. I was like, whatever, I've done quite a few interviews in the fitness world. So I was ready for anything, and it felt good, to be like, okay, whatever Joe throws at me, let's do it.
Well, I'm going to throw you this question. The show is called Zero Limits Living. And what I'd like to ask my guests is really the question, do we have any limits? We talk about a lot of things, especially with fitness here with you, and your website, scottyorkfitness.com, so people can go there for more info. But if people are sitting there going, yeah, that worked for Dr. Joe. Yeah, that worked for Scott. Scott's got lucky breaks and whatever they say, but they don't feel it'll work for them. Are there any limits to fitness? Are there any limits to what we're capable of achieving with our body, mind, and our soul? Do you perceive that we have limits?
I don't think so. I don't live my life like that. What would Arnold say to that? There are no limits. You stay hungry. You have ambition. That's a very powerful word. And there have been times in my life where my ambition has started to fall off a little bit. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm human, and you get lackadaisical and you get lazy and you just want to be left alone, but I always come back to stay hungry, be ambitious, help other people. That's where the energy is by helping and giving. And I've learned so much about this from you. So there are no limits. I think if you have self-imposed limits, you're probably not, volunteering enough. You're probably not helping others enough. You're probably not giving enough.
Okay, I'm going to sneak in one more question. And this is just coming to my mind as we're talking right now. And I know the curtain's got to fall and we're going to be yanked off the air, but I'm going to do it anyway. What is a fitness secret, trick, shortcut, hack that you've never talked about before that works?
Golly, I see there's the zinger right there. I think we're having technical problems. Bye. No, man, that is such a great question. I don't really have any secret. I try to share everything that I know, Joe, I just keep going back to be around like-minded people, because you know that you're going to have down days when you don't feel like doing it. So you'll have somebody that will pull you up. And I just believe in strength training. Lifting weights is wonderful, however you decide to do that. And just get those 10,000 steps a day. It really doesn't have to be exotic or sexy. It can be simple. And to me, that's where the beauty is the simplicity.
Very beautiful. Scott, I can't thank you enough for doing this. You've greatly influenced my life, inspired me. Lisa loves you. Lisa says hello to you. You've just now helped a whole lot of people and all the people that'll be seeing this in the future. And what are you pointing at? I can't see. That's
one of Lisa's watercolors right behind watercolor paintings right behind me there.
That is wonderful. Lisa Winston has art behind Scott's back. Scott, thank you very much. You want people to go to scottyorkfitness.com. Is that the site?
That's it.
All right. Everybody, I'm Dr. Joe Vitale. You've been listening or watching Zero Limits Living. Every week, I bring you inspiration or information or both to transform your life. You can go to ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com to see all the episodes. Go to miraclescoaching.com to check out my coaching program. I want to thank Lux Media Studios, Candace Barr, and Nick running the engineering today. I want to thank all of you for tuning in. I love you. Expect miracles.